Welcome to the Young Artists podcast, when young artists take center stage. I'm your host, Natalia, and this is the place where we dive deep into the minds and works of emerging artists, exploring their unique perspectives and creative journeys. Enjoy! Welcome, art enthusiasts, to the season premiere of the Young Artists podcast. I'm your host, Natalia, and today we have a truly exceptional guest with us, someone who has blended the realms of art and nature in a unique and eco-conscious way. Our guest for this episode is Martina Kocianova, a visionary jewellery designer whose lifelong fascination with mycology extends beyond creating captivating mushroom-inspired jewellery. Hi, Martina.
Hello, how are you?
It's great to have you on the podcast. I am very interested in your story. How did you start thinking about the jewellery design? How did you become inspired with mushrooms? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So with jewelry, it was like a very natural thing for me. I've always been interested in jewelry since I was a child. Like I was doing, I think my first jewelry when I was like 11 and kind of really fell in love with it. And then I was, doing jewelry using simple techniques like beading and Fimo, like polymer clay. And then I was selling it on Facebook Marketplace. So it was like my first proper kind of income. Not proper, it was like earrings for £5 or something, but still. So, and then I've kind of just went through all these different techniques, and I went to study art high school that was textiles. And through that, I also was still kind of doing jewelry and kind of practicing on my own in like a tiny studio that I had. And then I went to study. So that is jewelry. And then the interest in mushrooms and like nature, that also comes from childhood and like my memory spent with my mom in the forest, and we were like mushroom foraging a lot, and it was her hobby. And I just when I came to London, I was thinking about my identity and what makes me me. So I thought this kind of childhood memory makes me me. And then also I started looking into like mushroom material in design, like mycelium used in design. It's amazing properties, and also in medicine and psychedelics and art and different kind of things. And I just became fascinated by it, and also visually. And then it just kind of became a blueprint for my work. And yes.
That's how you started.
Yes.
So basically, your interest in jewelry comes from even before high school.
Yes. Like when I was, I think 11 I started. I was like 12 when I started selling it. But I never knew that I could actually study.
Yeah.
Also, my family was very like anti-arts. Like they were not supportive of arts at all. So they would never think that that would be a viable career, or even just like...
something that you can like do for real.
Yeah, and I didn't know as well, so but then with time it happened.
But that is really the cool thing, to have such interest that comes from your early years, and then you believe in it so much that it becomes your career. And could you explain what mycelium is and how it serves as the foundation for your process and for your jewelry?
So mycelium is like the root system of mushrooms. So it's how the mushrooms grow, and basically it's a network of roots. And I use mycelium in my jewelry in like either I use directly the material, or I'm just inspired by the root system, by the visual, and the material itself I use in the jewelry, in some of the jewelry pieces, but that's very like experimental, and I have just few jewelry pieces that include this material. But basically I work with this, or I collaborate with this mycology farm in Slovakia, and they are really pros at reproducing the mycelium. They grow their own mushrooms, and they kind of use it for making even sustainable leathers, and they kind of navigate me in cultivating the mycelium. So I cultivate it in a petri dish, and then I kind of use the petri dish as part of the jewelry piece. But for now, it's still very like experimental and more like a visual artifact. It's supposed to like grow inside the jewelry and become like a very unique thing that is alive, and it
Oh,
kind of
wow.
changes through the environment you're in and how you treat it, and it kind of, because the moment I put it inside, I kind of conserve it. I don't put resin or something. It's still alive. Like it's kind of like a pickle jar, I call
Oh,
it.
cool.
And then it grows for some time until it dies. So it kind of is a living creature for some time.
So basically, you buy a piece of jewelry and you don't really know how it's gonna look like.
Yes.
It has a possibility to evolve and to become something else.
Yes.
I find it quite metaphorical. You can
Yeah.
buy it for that certain period in your life. Of course, you can wear it forever, but this mushroom growing inside can signify something that is happening in your life, and then it dies and something else comes.
Yes.
Do you find like mushrooms having this sort of metaphorical meaning? What is like the symbolic of mushroom itself?
I mean, I think for me, I feel like everything is connected to mushrooms. Even people are connected. Like we share the same chromosome as mushrooms, and we don't share it with
Really?
animals or plants. Like we are very unique as humans, and mushrooms have similarities as well to us, which I find very weird. And sometimes I've even had like, oh my god, they're aliens. I really get into it, and I think that they inspire us. I'm not sure if we inspire them, probably not, but I think they have been really part of our culture and society for millions of years. But obviously it's quite a new topic in like specifically in design, maybe this last 10 years. So it just, yeah, but as a symbol, it is very, to me personally, it represents like this very kind of fairy tale and this very fantasy and anything is possible magic. Yes.
When you mentioned the fairy tale, I really love how you create this photographic sessions with your jewelry that remind me of this imaginary world. Do you like fantasy, and has this become a little bit of like the inspiration for your theme, or it's mostly nature itself?
I think, yeah, fantasy or like escapism, or I look into like this very naive mind I had as a child, and I thought, everything is magical and I could become, and I could have superpowers the next day. And I like, because the more adult you become, the more you are like skeptical and realistic. And I kind of look up to my brain I had when I was a child and look for inspiration there. So the mushroom is like the symbol of that specific time in my life, I think. But it could be anything. It could be, some type of leaf, or it could be a flower. It could be anything. But mushroom is the leading point.
I love that you mentioned this escapism and how we as adults really become serious people who don't imagine that many things that are unreal. Can you describe how your creative process looks like when you start designing something? What are the steps?
I think I have two processes. One is like very spontaneous, like, oh, I just get an idea in a flash and then I start making it straight up. And I'm very hands-on usually, but then other process is definitely like a lot of research, but that more revolves around a specific project. A lot of research, reading books, and then drawing, and maybe also going outside. Specifically with mushrooms, I do like mushroom foraging, or not necessarily even foraging, but just like finding mushrooms and like taking pictures and then putting them to my sketchbooks and then kind of outlining designs. But I feel like the ideas usually come during the most random times. Like, for example, when I'm peeling potatoes or something, like it's so unpredictable, you cannot really plan it. And usually when you put your mind out of stress and just put it into different environment yourself, then that's the time when you get the ideas. But so it is very creative, but very hands-on, a lot of experimentation. I still feel like I need to try and see if it fails or if it works.
So, can you reveal your favorite location for mushroom foraging in London? Where do you go?
Well, in London it's Epping Forest, but you're not supposed to forage.
Okay.
So I just
Just look.
I just take pictures, and I have this app, it's called Picture Mushroom or something, and you basically buy it, and then it tells you what kind of mushroom you are looking at, kind of identifies the mushroom for you.
So, when it's allowed, do you pick them and, for example, cook something from them, or the passion is only of the shape?
Yes, I
Do you
do.
like mushrooms?
Yeah. I mean, I pick them and I cook them for sure. But even last time, like 2 weeks ago, I picked like these massive oysters, and I knew they were oysters. I was 100% sure. Then I even asked my friends who are like mycologists, but my parents were like, "Oh my God, you're gonna die! You cannot do that!" And they gave me such a scare. I was like, "Oh, I'm not gonna do it, whatever." But yeah, usually I do. Specifically in Slovakia, I really know the mushrooms there and like the fungi there. So there I'm very brave and I know all of them. Not all of them, but the ones I like specifically in terms of taste. But here it's a bit more, here it's still a little bit different conditions for the mushrooms. So there different mushrooms are growing here. So it's a bit more
Yeah, and
tricky.
what about like the toxic properties of mushroom? Do you also try to talk about it in your art? Because your art, when I look at your jewelry, the colors are so amazing. They are very unreal. And when you think about the mushroom, they are usually very like gray, brown. And I don't know much about mushrooms, but I know that the most colorful mushrooms, like the red one, are
Yeah.
usually the most poisonous. And your jewelry is very colorful. Does it have any correlation?
Yeah, I think, well, specifically the red one, it is poisonous, but it is more hallucinogenic, actually, the very famous one. But yeah, I definitely look also, of course, I wouldn't eat a toxic mushroom, but you know, like I definitely am interested how it can intoxicate us, and then I kind of make with the sculptural pieces that are inspired by the mushrooms. Usually it's like I kind of make up my own mushroom that is, you know, very colorful, and I call it my own way, and it has these specific properties, and I kind of make up a mushroom. And usually these mushrooms that I make, they are toxic, because I feel like, yeah, there's something beautiful about it being unavailable to us humans, but having a purpose in the nature. And they're also protecting themselves from us.
Yeah.
Because they don't, you know, they don't want us to eat them or something. So, yeah, I definitely like also toxic mushrooms, but of course, just to look at are.
Talking about the colors in your artworks, what about the psychedelic mushrooms? Do you also get inspired by them and how they can affect human brains?
Yeah, I think there is definitely a part that looks into, you know, the psychedelic properties of mushrooms, and definitely this very colorful world that I try to evoke through jewelry. And I'm also very inspired by like fractal geometry and by colors. So I definitely put that into my jewelry pieces, and of course also, you know, my experiences. And but I feel like the magic properties of the mushrooms, or like psychedelic, like that's what usually people think when I say, "Oh, my jewelry is about mushrooms." You know, most people are like, "Ah, trippy girl," but actually, that's just a part of it. That's just something to express myself, maybe through exactly the colors or through the visuals. But then I'm more look into like specific types of mushrooms and how I could reinterpret them, like even edible mushrooms, or even, you know, mushrooms that I just see, and then I kind of use it for my own project. But the mycelium itself, I use usually like oyster mushroom or shimei mushroom, or sometimes it's like mycelium from forest, which is lovely. So yes.
So, is it the mushroom you use for when you like to use the live mushroom, or is it the one you use in order to design the pattern?
Yeah, both. So
Well,
both, but specifically the psychedelic mushrooms am inspired by visually, like by their characteristics, like how they look. Maybe I use it as an engraving, or maybe just like a very colorful kind of visions. And I definitely also like the fractal geometry and like very fantasy land. So Of course, the fantasy land is accessible through the magic mushrooms,
Yeah.
but that's just part of my work.
So what is your favorite mushroom, both to eat and visually?
Well, to eat, it's definitely the parasol mushroom. That's like my all-time favorite food ever.
Okay.
It grows usually like this time, like September, but I haven't seen it in UK, and it's like a very nice white mushroom, and it smells so delicious. And then I fried like a schnitzel, and it's my favorite mushroom.
Oh wow.
And then visually depends. There is like the ear mushroom, or even like a bleeding tooth mushroom looks very creepy, and I love the visual of it. So yeah, there are many beautiful mushrooms.
The bleeding tooth. Oh my goodness. I'm just seeing the picture. It looks so cool. It really looks like it's bleeding.
Yes, it looks like it's bleeding, and I've seen it once live.
In real life?
Yeah, like when it was really tiny. It was in Canada, and then it was like, wow. But I haven't seen it in Europe yet.
Cool. And how did you come up with the gemstones? Because there's a lot of gemstones in your jewelry. How do they connect?
I think I just like anything sparkly, that's why I went into jewelry in the first place. Like, when I was a kid, I was also super obsessed with crystals, as probably everyone. No. like
Crystals
getting
and
crystals.
astrology?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or just like looking at crystals and collecting crystals. So I loved it. And I also like astrology, and of course you can kind of relate with your jewelry to people when you're taking into consideration, like, let's say, star signs or different kind of things. Like, people really like when the gemstones are assigned to their star sign. So that is just a way to kind of make the jewelry very jewelry-like, because at the end of the
very
day,
personal.
Yes. But I like when jewelry is like also a heirloom piece and an investment piece, something that lasts lifetime, and gemstones and precious materials definitely have the quality.
Yeah. So what is your favorite piece that you have created?
Oh, I don't know. That's so hard to say. I don't have like a favorite. I definitely like the big necklace with the mushroom mycelium. Then but I cannot say. I have so many. I feel like for a week I fall in love with one piece, then another week with another one, and then it depends.
So do you have any jewelry designers that inspire you and are your favorites?
Yes, I definitely love Hemerle. That's like a German family of goldsmiths, and they do really amazing jewelry pieces, like also very luxurious and art pieces, investment pieces. Then I like also Taffin. That is like, I think, the uncle or cousin of Givenchy, the one who the original
Fashion
Givenchy.
designer, yeah.
So Taffin is the one who does the jewelry, and it's also very, very like luxurious. I really look up to this very contemporary design, but very colorful. I love also when the design is simple but also decorative at the same time, and it's like really clever. Like when I feel like, wow, this is so clever, then I'm really impressed by it, because I feel like I still didn't learn how to simplify my jewelry just yet. Like, I'm still very decorative, so when I see something like that, I'm very impressed.
So your pieces are definitely big and statement, which I love. Do you feel like they are more on daily wear basis or more like a special occasion pieces?
Well, I also have tiny pieces. Those are definitely the most commercial, the most or the least time consuming, and the most relatable to people. But then I also have some big statement pieces, and those ones I really like, and those ones I are probably not for everyday wear. It depends. Like, if it's like this kind of ring, like I'm wearing like a massive ring, then there are people who love chunky rings and wear them every day, or even chunky necklaces. But at the end of the day, I feel like I create the jewelry. Part of it is definitely for everyday wear, and then part of it is just like for special occasions, if you kind of want to drag yourself up or feel a little bit different. and yes, use jewelry as part of your expression.
Very cool. And can you reveal what you're working on right now?
Now I'm working on creating a collection from gold and like few more pieces that are a mix of like wearable and a mix of statement pieces. So kind of like I do a lot of carving from precious stones. So kind of carving these things and then using them for the jewelry and yes, then more statement pieces as well. And yeah, but my aim specifically for this year is to kind of create few gold pieces with like very precious materials that I can kind of save up and either sell or use for galleries or different kind of places.
More like art
Yes.
jewelry.
Yes, like art jewelry but still wearable.
And I'm very interested because when you're working with natural materials, your jewelry is very much contributing to the conversation about sustainability and eco-consciousness in the fashion industry. How do you feel about jewelry being sustainable right now? Do you think it's going in the good direction, or is it a little bit of a problem in the jewelry world? Because I know that fashion is struggling with the sustainability. It's a very bad industry in these terms. What about the jewelry?
I think jewelry is probably as horrible as fashion in general. Like just when you think of how diamonds are mined and gold is mined and how many people were killed during the process of it, like it almost seems like I feel like diamonds and gold are one of the three reasons people die the most. So jewelry is really horrible, and I think people don't talk about it as much as, for example, fashion. But regards art, the jewelry, it is very exciting, and I think people definitely look more into sustainability and kind of very eco-conscious practices. And I think most people that make jewelry, by themselves, they like really, it's a slow process, it takes time, it's very conscious where you source your pieces, and so it is definitely sustainable, and probably more sustainable as well. Like there's a lot of, inventions regards, for example, synthetic stones and recycled materials. So that is definitely moving forward, but it's not amazing for sure, but it's better.
Do you like working with this sort of sustainable materials?
Yes, I mean, I also like gold and diamonds, for example, but I really try to look into how it was sourced, and depending on the client I have, then we kind of look at something together. But usually for my personal work, then I definitely look into like even secondhand pieces, like even jewelry pieces that I can kind of repurpose for another thing, or then even stones. Specifically, I get these crystals that I carve then, and those are usually secondhand that probably someone bought just to like collect stones, and then then it was just there was a dust falling on them. So yes, I like using very either recycled materials or eco-friendly, or even like very innovative, like the mushroom mycelium, it's an alive material that I made basically by myself and by the mushroom itself. So then it is very sustainable.
Could you tell me, was it difficult to approach, for example, this firm that you mentioned that is working with mushrooms a lot and to cooperate with them? Is it difficult to come up with this sort of cooperations when you're an artist?
I think when I started getting into it, it's very sciencey. It's a science field, so obviously I have no understanding of that, so I definitely needed some guidance. So I was experimenting on my own, and it took time to find someone like that. But when I find them, we really clicked, and they are so helpful. So they're amazing people, and everyone I have approached, even people in UK, regards this mushroom cultivation, they were so helpful, and even given me guidance or pieces for free, because a lot of the times the things that I need are the ones they don't really need as much. Like they make either they grow the mushrooms, but I just need a specimen of the mushroom, so that is not such a big deal for them. So usually I can get the bits they don't really need, so that's lovely. But I try to grow it on my own, usually, but it definitely has a different result than when you grow it with someone professional.
So do you have your own mushroom farm at the house?
Like I build a box and then I do the processes on my own, but when I do it on my own, it basically gets bacteria inside.
Mm-hmm.
Usually when you do it in a lab, then it is sterile environment, everything is sterile and it's a very clean mushroom cultivation. But I personally have the bacteria inside because I don't have a lab. But then I like to use it because the bacteria is very colorful and it kind of provides a different kind of texture. So for my specific purpose, regards using it for the jewelry, it's great. It's okay. But if I would, for example, now I'm even trying to do packaging from mycelium, so that should be a very clean mushroom culture that is done in a lab.
So how does the bacteria affect the mushroom? Is it like changing the colors or what does it do?
Yeah, it's changing the colors, it's changing the properties, it kind of parasites the mushroom, and then it cannot be used for anything else than maybe this kind of artistic purpose.
So I have a last question for you. What would be your advice for young artists or for people who want to start doing jewelry and who don't know where to start?
I think for jewelry people, I'm not sure about artists, but that's the same. For jewelry people, I definitely think that don't expect to get everything from school. Mm-hmm. Or just because you're going to school, that doesn't mean anything. You really need to practice on your own, and usually you get the most knowledge from failures and experimentation and from practice in the industry. So just don't go into it expecting that you'll go to university and you will learn how to do everything, because that's just the ideal kind of
scenario.
Yes.
Yeah, it's true. Like the real industry teaches you a lot more. But it's important to get this knowledge and people from the school. But then I see your point, definitely.
Yeah, or I would say like, look, if you feel like you don't have your own taste or if you don't have your own thing going on for you, then look exactly into like your childhood or your memories and kind of dig from this past and make it your own through art. Kind of use it for art purposes, and then it becomes authentic.
That's a great advice for seeking inspiration.
Yeah. Yes.
It's sometimes very difficult. Yeah. I have friends who are artists and who really struggle. They ask me like how to find the topic that will be interesting and relevant. And I think many people don't know it, It's not that obvious that you come up with something that's so personal and it seems authentic and you also really like it. So it's great.
Yeah, I think also exactly, it should be personal, and sometimes it also comes from trauma and different kind of things or personal childhood, but that is exactly what sets you apart, because only you have those. You can have experiences similar to people who have similar identity or similar experiences, but still your point of view is unique in your approach. So once you make it personal, then it's gonna go well.
Thank you very much, Martina. It was a great conversation.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. I've learned so much about the mushroom, I never expected to know that much, but I really love your jewelry and I really love your creative approach. So good luck with your jewelry.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for listening, and see you next week. Thank you for joining us on the Young Artists podcast. Don't forget to stay connected with us on Instagram and LinkedIn. Follow us at Young Artist Podcast for behind-the-scenes glimpses, updates, and even more artistic inspiration. Your support fuels our creativity.